I want you to try something for me, just for a second. Think back to earlier this week.
Okay.
Maybe you were, I don't know, driving to work or standing in line for coffee or sitting in one of those meetings that really should have just been an email.
The usual stuff, the autopilot moment.
Exactly. The moments where you think you're in total control. You know, you're the captain of your ship, right? You chose the coffee, you chose the route, you chose the shirt you're wearing.
I am in charge.
Yes, I am in charge, but then something happens out of nowhere. Maybe someone cuts you off in traffic, and for just a split second, you aren't merely annoyed. You are possessed.
Possessed is a strong word, but it's accurate. It really fits. You feel this surge of rage that is completely, wildly disproportionate to the event.
Right. It's like, where did that come from? Or maybe you're at a party and you meet someone new. You don't know them. You have absolutely zero data on this person.
No.
But you feel this magnetic pull, or maybe an instant gut-churning aversion. You didn't decide to feel that way.
No, it just arrived. It feels like an invasion, almost.
An invasion.
Yeah.
That's it. We walk around with this rock-solid conviction that we are rational agents making, logical choices. But if we are honest, I mean, really honest with ourselves, we have to admit that a huge chunk of our life is dictated by these impulses and fears and attractions that we didn't invite and, frankly, often don't understand.
We love the idea that we are the authors of our own story.
Oh, absolutely.
But so often we're just the characters reacting to a plot that was written by something else entirely.
And that right there is the terrifying, slightly vertigo-inducing premise we are grappling with today. We are diving deep into the maps of the unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
And we aren't just talking about feelings in some vague sense. We are talking about the architecture of the human soul as it was mapped out by Carl Jung.
And Jung is really the perfect guide for this kind of journey because he wasn't just a psychologist in a clinical sense. He was more like a cartographer of the inner universe.
A cartographer, I like that.
Yeah, he believed that these invisible forces, the sudden rage in traffic, the unexplained attraction, they aren't random glitches in the system. They are the geography of a hidden territory inside of you.
Hidden territory. That's good. And so here is our mission for this deep dive. We're going to try to stop calling these things fate.
Or bad luck.
Or bad luck, or that's just the way I am. We are going to call them what they are. Psychology.
Because the stakes here they're incredibly high. I mean, there's a quote by Jung that has always just haunted me. He said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate."
Wow, that's the whole show right there, isn't it? It implies that if you don't do this work, you aren't actually living your own life. You're just acting out a script you haven't even read.
Precisely. You are a puppet who is convinced he's a real boy.
And has no idea there are strings attached.
Exactly. But here's the good news. The liberating part. If you can see the strings,
You can cut them.
well, maybe not cut them entirely, but you can at least learn how to dance with them. You can enter into a dialogue.
Okay, so let's unpack this. If we're going to explore this hidden territory, we need to understand the lay of the land, the architecture. Because I think most of us, especially in the modern West, we view the mind kind of like a computer.
A machine model, yeah. It's very popular, very seductive.
Right. It's all about input, processing, output. If I have a problem, I just need more data or maybe a better algorithm. If I feel sad, I need to fix the sad circuit. It's all very mechanical.
It's mechanical, it's comforting in a way, and it's almost entirely wrong. Jung didn't see the mind as a machine at all. He saw it as a living ecosystem.
An ecosystem.
Yeah, think of it less like a laptop and more like a primordial forest. It's alive, it's ancient, and it's populated by things that have their own agendas, their own lives.
That is significantly creepier than a laptop.
It is, but it's also so much more wondrous. And in this ecosystem, the part of you that calls itself, the part that's listening to us right now, is what Jung called the ego.
Right. The me I think I am.
And we tend to think the ego is the whole show.
The ego is the CEO, right? It's in the corner office making all the big decisions.
The ego thinks it's the CEO. It absolutely believes it. It's the voice that says, I am a podcast host, I am a kind person, I want a sandwich. It believes it lives in the penthouse and runs the entire building.
But you're saying it's not the whole building?
Jung argues it's not even a whole floor. The ego is actually just a tiny little island, maybe just a cork floating on top of a massive dark ocean.
And the ocean is the unconscious.
The entire ocean, yes. And that ocean has layers. It has depth. Immediately beneath the ego, so right under the surface of the water, is what he called the personal unconscious.
Okay, I think I have a handle on this one. This is sort of the basement of my mind, right? This is where I store all the stuff I've forgotten, the embarrassing thing I said in third grade, the emotions I didn't have time to process yesterday.
Correct. It's your personal baggage. It's unique to you and your history. If you go to traditional therapy, it's usually where you hang out.
Makes sense.
You know, why do I have issues with authority figures? Oh, because my dad was a tyrant. That's the personal unconscious at work.
But Jung didn't stop there, and this is where things get a little weird and frankly a bit more exciting. He argued that if you dive deeper, past all your personal stuff, you hit a layer that isn't unique to you at all, the collective unconscious.
This is the concept that usually makes the scientific materialist types start to roll their eyes.
I have to admit, I'm twitching a little bit myself. It sounds a bit like a hive mind, like we're all psychically connected via some kind of cosmic Wi-Fi or something. Is that what he meant?
Not at all. And this is a really, really important distinction to make. Jung wasn't talking about magic. He was talking about biology.
Biology. Ah.
Okay, think about a weaver bird.
A weaver bird, okay.
A weaver bird. You can take a weaver bird egg away from its parents, hatch it in total isolation, and raise it in a room where it never sees another bird or a nest. It has no cultural transmission.
Right, it's a blank slate bird.
You would think. But when that bird matures and you give it a few blades of grass, what does it do?
It builds a nest.
It builds a very specific, incredibly complex knot that is unique to its species. It wasn't taught that. It didn't learn it from watching others. That knowledge was preloaded into its nervous system. It's an inherited behavioral pattern.
Okay, so you're saying that we humans have our own nest-building software, psychologically speaking?
Exactly. We are animals after all. Why would we possibly assume that our bodies have evolved over millions of years, but our minds are just born as blank slates? It doesn't make any sense.
That's a fair point.
Jung argued that the collective unconscious is just the psychological aspect of our biological inheritance. We don't just inherit 2 arms and a nose, we inherit a psychic structure.
And these inherited structures are what he called archetypes.
Yes. An archetype is like a psychic instinct. It's a preformed potential for experience. We don't inherit the specific image of a mother, for instance, but we inherit the expectation of a mother.
So it's like a template.
It's a template, exactly. We are pre-wired to respond to a nurturer, to a hero, to a monster, to a wise old man.
So that's why we see the same stories pop up in myths and religions all over the world, even in cultures that never interacted with each other. The hero's journey isn't just a cool story structure that someone invented.
It's not. It's a map of the human psyche. It's the user manual that comes pre-installed with the human condition.
Wow.
So when you watch a movie and the underdog finally stands up to the giant and you get goosebumps and you feel that swell of emotion, that isn't just good directing or a clever script.
It's something ancient waking up in me.
It is an archetype vibrating in your system. You are resonating with a pattern that has existed in the human soul for 200,000 years.
That makes it feel much less woo-woo, as
Yeah.
they say, and much more grounded. It's like gravity for the mind.
That's a perfect analogy.
You can't see gravity, you can't touch it, but you definitely obey its laws.
You absolutely do. And these archetypes are massive gravitational fields. And the ego, that little cork boat bobbing on the surface, is constantly being pulled and pushed by these invisible currents.
Okay, so if the ego is the boat and the archetypes are the deep ocean currents, we need to talk about the boat's decoration. The paint job, the mask.
The persona.
You can call it the persona.
Yes, the persona. It comes from the Latin word for the mask worn by actors in ancient Roman theater. And it serves the exact same function for us. It is the face we wear to meet the world.
And we all have one. Or actually, we have several. I have my podcast host persona, which is supposed to be witty and inquisitive. I have my responsible parent persona. I even have my I'm totally fine and not screaming internally while waiting in this long line at the DMV persona.
A very important one. And we need them. I want to be really clear here. Jung wasn't saying the persona is inherently bad. It's a vital organ of social life. I mean, if you went to a dinner party and expressed every single passing thought, every petty judgment, every strange impulse that bubbled up from your unconscious,
You would not be invited back to that dinner party.
you would not. Society would collapse in about 20 minutes if we all did that.
Chaos.
Total chaos. The persona is a social contract. It protects your inner vulnerability from the judgments of the world, and it protects the world from your raw, unfiltered chaos. It's an incredibly useful tool.
But, and there's always a but, tools can be dangerous if you don't know how to handle them, or if you forget you're holding one.
The danger arises When you forget you are wearing a mask. When the ego over-identifies with the persona.
What does that look like in the wild? Can you give us an example?
Sure. Let's imagine a guy named Robert. Robert is a high-powered CEO. For 30 years, his identity is the boss.
Okay.
He is decisive, hyper-rational, unemotional. He commands respect. He wears that suit of his like a second skin. He walks into a room and people jump. That is his persona.
He is the CEO. If you ask him, who are you? That's his answer.
That is his entire answer.
Right.
But then, Robert turns 65. The company throws him a big party, gives him a gold watch, and sends him home. On Monday morning, Robert wakes up.
No office to go to.
No office. He puts on his bathrobe. He sits at his kitchen table with a cup of coffee. And he falls into a catastrophic, soul-crushing depression.
Because the CEO is dead.
He's gone. Robert spent 30 years feeding the persona and starving his actual self.
Yeah.
He has no idea who Robert is. He only knew who the CEO was. And now the mask has been ripped off, and he's terrified to find there's no face underneath it.
That is so profound, because we usually think of a midlife crisis or a retirement crisis as being caused by failure, like, oh, I didn't achieve my dreams and now I'm sad. But you're saying it's often caused by success.
Success is the ultimate trap for the persona.
Yeah.
If your mask works too well, you never have a reason to take it off.
How would you?
You get the promotions, you get the applause, you get the validation. The world loves your mask. So you start to think that's all you are. You've essentially welded to your face.
And meanwhile, the inner life, that whole ecosystem underneath, is dying of neglect.
It's dying, or it's rebelling. Which brings us to the next stop on our map.
The shadow.
The shadow.
This is probably the most famous of all Jungian terms, but I feel like it's also the most misunderstood. We hear the word shadow, and we immediately think evil. We think, oh, that's the secret serial killer inside me.
It's not necessarily evil, though it can certainly contain destructive things. A better way to think of the shadow is as the bag you drag behind you, just out of sight.
The bag of what?
The bag containing everything that you and your family and your society decided was unacceptable.
So if I grew up in a family that taught me good boys don't get angry, then my anger goes into the shadow bag.
Exactly. If you were taught nice girls aren't selfish, your healthy self-interest goes into the shadow. If you were taught strong men don't cry, your vulnerability goes into the shadow.
Yeah.
It is the repository for everything you've labeled not me.
Okay, so I shove all this unwanted stuff in the bag. I lock the bag in the basement of my mind. I put on my smiling persona and go about my day. Problem solved, right?
If only it were that easy. This is the central mechanic, maybe the most important rule of Jungian psychology. What you suppress does not disappear.
It doesn't.
It goes underground,
Yeah.
and it starts lifting weights.
It gets swole in the dark.
It gets feral. Think of it like a pressurized system. The more energy you spend holding the basement door shut on the shadow, the more pressure builds up behind that door, and eventually, inevitably,
The door bursts open.
when it bursts, it's not graceful, it's not polite.
No.
It usually manifests as a sudden, uncontrollable reaction that seems to come from nowhere. We've all seen the perpetually nice guy who suddenly snaps and punches a wall over a minor disagreement.
Yeah, that's scary to see.
Or the perfectly moral public figure who is caught in a scandalous affair that blows up their life. That is the shadow, starved for attention, taking the wheel of the car and driving it off a cliff.
But there's a sneakier way the shadow shows up, isn't there? It doesn't always just explode in a dramatic fashion. Sometimes it paints itself onto other people.
Projection. And this right here is the most practical, hands-on tool that you can take away from this entire deep dive. If you want to know what is in your shadow, you don't need years of deep meditation. You just need to look at who really, really annoys you.
Oh, I hate this part. It's so convicting.
It's the mirror effect. And here is the litmus test for you. Think of someone in your life, a coworker, a family member, a politician on TV who you don't just dislike, but who you actively loathe.
The person who makes your blood boil just by breathing in your direction?
That's the one. If they're just annoying, fine. Maybe they're just an annoying person. But if you feel a visceral, powerful, emotional charge, if you find yourself obsessed with their flaws, if you rant about them to your partner for hours on end, Jung would say, congratulations, you have just found a piece of your own shadow.
So let's make this concrete. If I'm constantly ranting to my friends about how arrogant and attention-seeking my colleague Steve is,
It is highly, highly likely that you are repressing your own arrogance. Or perhaps you're repressing your own healthy desire to be assertive and recognized. a quality which you have mislabeled arrogance to keep it safely locked in the bag,
And I project it onto Steve so I can attack it out there.
instead of having to deal with the uncomfortable truth that it's in here.
It's a defense mechanism then. It feels good to judge Steve. It feels righteous.
It feels fantastic. It's
Got
why
it.
we do it all the time. Projection is a drug. It gives you a temporary high. It allows you to feel superior and pure because all the bad stuff is over there and the designated enemy.
But it's a lie.
It's a complete hallucination.
Hmm.
And the cost of that hallucination is that you are constantly fighting these exhausting external battles that are, in reality, just internal civil wars.
So the solution here isn't to go and try to fix Steve.
Yeah.
It's to turn around and ask, okay, which part of me is Steve acting out for me right now?
Yes. You take the projection back. You withdraw the hook. You have the courage to say, okay, I see it now. I also have the capacity to be arrogant. I also sometimes want to be the center of attention.
And what happens when you do that?
The magic is the moment you own that trait in yourself, Steve stops triggering you. He just becomes a guy who's, kind of full of himself. He loses his demonic power over you.
That is a total reframe of conflict. It turns every single enemy into a potential teacher.
An unwilling teacher, but a teacher nonetheless. And it's not just the negative stuff we project. We do it with positive qualities, too. Jung called this the golden shadow.
Wait a second. We repress our good stuff. Why would we do that?
All the time. Imagine a person who has absolutely no confidence, who thinks they are small and insignificant and could never achieve anything. They might project their own latent hero energy onto a celebrity or a guru or a political leader.
So they worship this person.
They worship them. They say, oh, she is so powerful. He is so wise. They are so courageous.
And they're basically just putting their own potential for power and wisdom into someone else's pocket.
Exactly. They are admiring their own reflection in the shop window, but they don't recognize it's them. They think the gold belongs to the other person.
Which brings us inevitably to the biggest, most powerful projection field of them all.
Ah, yes.
Romance.
The anima and the animus.
Now, we should probably tread a little carefully here because the language can sound a bit dated to modern ears. Jung was writing in a different time. He talked about the anima as the inner feminine in a man and the animus as the inner masculine in a woman.
Right. And for listeners today, it's really helpful to detach this from strict biological gender and think about it more as symbolic energies or modalities of being.
How so?
The feminine, or the anima in Jungian terms, usually symbolizes what he called eros, the principle of connection, feeling, intuition, nuance, depth, the irrational, the mysterious.
Okay.
And the masculine, or the animus, symbolizes logos, the principle of structure, logic, assertion, discrimination, clarity, meaning.
So, regardless of your biological gender or your identity, you have both of these fundamental energies within you, but usually one is more conscious and the other is, well, it's in the unconscious.
Correct. And because it's in the unconscious, what do we do with it?
We project it.
We project it. Jung argued that when you fall in love, that thunderbolt, lightning strike moment where you lock eyes with a stranger across a crowded room and feel this is the one.
You're not actually seeing that person.
You're not seeing them at all. You're seeing a movie projected onto their face.
A movie of what?
A movie of your own anima or animus. You are seeing your own soul image embodied in another human being. And that is why it feels so intensely magical and predestined. You feel complete. You feel like you finally found the missing half of yourself.
Because in a very real psychological way, you have. You just haven't realized it was inside you all along.
Exactly. You've taken this beautiful, perfect, internal golden image and you've hooked it onto a real, live, flawed human being. And this sets the stage for the inevitable tragedy.
The breakup. Or at the very least, the painful end of the honeymoon phase.
The crash. It's
Yeah.
always a crash. Because no human being on Earth can carry the weight of your projected soul image forever.
Right.
Eventually, they will forget to take out the trash. They will have a bad mood. They will say something stupid or selfish, and the projection flickers.
And when that happens, we get mad. We feel betrayed. We say, you changed. You're not the person I fell in love with.
When in reality, they didn't change. You just started seeing them clearly for the very first time. The divine mask slipped. And Jung says this is the most dangerous moment in a relationship, but it's also the only moment where real, authentic love becomes possible.
How do you mean?
Because as long as I am projecting my inner ideal onto you, I'm not loving you. I'm loving my own fantasy of you. I'm just using you as a movie screen.
You're in a relationship with yourself.
You are. Real love can only begin when I have the courage to withdraw the projection. When I can see you for the flawed, complex, separate human being that you are, and I consciously choose to love you anyway.
So the goal isn't to find the perfect person who matches your projection. The goal is to take back the projection and own that energy for yourself.
Yes. So if a man projects his anima, his capacity for emotional depth and connection onto a woman, he often demands that she do all the emotional labor for him. She's the emotional one, I'm the logical one.
I've heard that one before.
If he withdraws that projection, he has to learn to access his own feelings, his own depth. He becomes a more whole person. And then he can meet her as a genuine partner, not as an emotional crutch.
It transforms the relationship from a kind of codependency into a real dialogue between two whole people.
Precisely.
Okay, so we have these incredibly powerful forces, the shadow, the anima, the archetypes, all swirling around in the deep ocean of the unconscious. But how do we actually communicate with them? It's not like the unconscious sends text messages.
No, it sends something much better. It sends symbols. And the primary delivery system for those symbols is dreams.
I feel like we are so bad at this in our modern culture. If I tell someone, I had a crazy dream last night, they usually say something like, oh, it was probably just that spicy pizza you ate. We dismiss it as meaningless neural static, just the brain cleaning itself out.
Which, from a Jungian perspective, is a profound tragedy. Jung viewed dreams as highly sophisticated, deeply intelligent communications from the core of our being. He believed their function was primarily compensatory.
Compensatory, so they're trying to balance the books of the psyche.
That's a perfect way to put it. The psyche is a self-regulating system, always striving for wholeness. So if your conscious life, your ego, swings too far in one direction, the unconscious will send a dream to pull you back to center.
Give me an example. What does that look like in practice?
Let's go back to Robert, our hyper-rational CEO. His waking life is all about power, control, logic. He might have a recurring dream where he's a homeless wanderer, lost in a storm, unable to speak, completely helpless.
The exact opposite of his waking persona.
The polar opposite. The ego says, I am all-powerful. The dream says, psst, hey, look over here. Look at this helpless, vulnerable part of yourself you've discarded. It's trying to show him what he's missing to be whole.
So if I'm having nightmares or really chaotic, bizarre dreams, it's not just random, it's a diagnosis.
It's a correction, a course correction from the self. If your life is too rigid and ordered, you'll dream of chaos. If you are too good and moralistic, you might dream of being a criminal or breaking taboos. The dream is always trying to bridge the gap between who you think you are and who you actually are in your totality.
That makes dreams sound less like weird movies and more like medicine, sometimes very bitter medicine.
Very bitter, often. And if you consistently ignore the medicine, if you keep dismissing the dreams, Jung says the unconscious will start shouting louder.
How does he do that?
This brings us to one of his most controversial but also most fascinating concepts, synchronicity.
Okay, I'm putting my skeptic hat on for this one, because this is usually where people check out. Synchronicity is just a fancy word for coincidence, right? It's just confirmation bias. You know, I buy a new red car and suddenly I start seeing red cars everywhere because my brain is primed to look for them.
That is the standard rationalist explanation. And Jung would say, sure, sometimes that's all it is. But he was interested in the events that seem to defy that simple explanation. The events that are not just coincidences, but meaningful coincidences.
Define meaningful. How do you measure that?
You don't measure it, you experience it. Here's the classic story Jung himself told. He was treating a woman who was hyper-rational, a complete fortress of logic. He couldn't get through to her. She was stuck. One day, she was telling him about a powerful dream she'd had about receiving a golden scarab beetle, a potent symbol of rebirth in ancient Egyptian mythology.
Okay. A dream about a beetle.
Right. While she is in the middle of telling him this dream, Jung hears a gentle tapping sound at his office window. He gets up, opens the window, and a beetle flies into the room. He catches it in his hand.
No way.
It was a rose chafer beetle, which is the closest European equivalent to a scarab. It's a brilliant, metallic green-gold color. He walks over to her, opens his hand and says, "Here is your scarab."
That is eerie.
It completely shattered her rationalist worldview. The inner world of her dream and the outer world of physical reality collided in the exact same moment, around the exact same symbol. And that shock was what finally allowed her psychological healing to begin.
So Jung isn't saying there's some magical puppet master pulling the strings of reality. He's saying that the wall between our inner world, the psyche, and the outer world, out there, is much thinner and more porous than we think.
Exactly. He believed that psyche and matter are ultimately two different aspects of the same unified reality. And when the deep layers of the unconscious are activated, during a major crisis, a death, a birth, a profound spiritual transformation, reality itself seems to respond. It seems to rhyme with your inner state.
It's like the environment starts harmonizing with what's happening inside you.
And the skeptic will always be able to cry coincidence. But the person who experiences it knows it meant something. It hits you with a sense of numinous power. It demands that you acknowledge there's a profound mystery at work.
So we've got the shadow, the persona, the dreams, the synchronicities. What is the point of all this? Where is this map supposed to lead? Is it just to be more self-aware or more interesting at parties? Or is there an actual destination?
The destination is what he called individuation.
Individuation. It sounds a lot like individualism, but I have a suspicion it's something very different.
Very, very different. Individualism is about the ego. I'm special, look at me, I'm different from the herd. Individuation is the lifelong process of becoming whole.
Wholeness versus perfection. That feels like a really key distinction.
It's the most important distinction there is. The ego wants to be perfect. It wants to cut off the shadow, hide all its weakness, and present a flawless, good image to the world. The totality of who you are doesn't care about perfection. It wants to be whole.
What does that mean, to be whole?
It means integrating the shadow, accepting the weakness, owning the bad parts, and being real instead of just being good.
So healing in this model isn't about getting rid of your anxiety or your darkness or your anger. It's about pulling up a chair for them at the dining table of your consciousness.
Exactly. Jung viewed neurosis, so depression, anxiety, that awful feeling of being stuck, not as a disease to be eradicated, but as a signal from the self.
A signal.
Think of it like a fever. A fever isn't the illness itself, it's the body's intelligent response trying to burn out the infection.
So if I'm feeling depressed, the Jungian approach isn't just take this pill and numb the feeling. It's, okay, stop, listen. What is this depression trying to tell me?
What part of my true self have I betrayed that is causing this psychic suffering? Where is my life energy blocked? The suffering itself contains the seeds of the cure, if you can only find the courage to listen to it.
That is incredibly hard to do. When we are in pain, our first and only instinct is to make it stop.
There is no coming to consciousness without pain. Jung was very, very clear about that. But the reward for that painful work is that you stop being a fragmented collection of warring, conflicting impulses. You become a unified entity. You move your center of gravity from the ego, the little island, to the self, the entire ocean.
And this brings up an interesting point about morality, because some people might hear all this and think, okay, so the goal is to just focus on myself and my own wholeness. Isn't that selfish?
Jung would argue quite forcefully that not doing this inner work is the most selfish and most dangerous thing you could possibly do.
How so?
Because if you don't integrate your own shadow, you will, without fail, project it onto other people. An unconscious person is a dangerous person. If you don't know your own capacity for violence and cruelty, you will see it in everyone else and you will attack them, convinced of your own righteousness.
So knowing yourself, truly knowing your own darkness, is actually a public service.
It is the ultimate ethical act. And this leads us to the final and perhaps the most urgent layer of Jung's map, the collective shadow.
Jung lived through World War I and World War II. He saw the rise of Nazism in Germany up close. He wasn't analyzing this stuff in a comfortable academic vacuum.
He saw firsthand what happens when an entire nation loses its collective mind. He called these phenomena psychic epidemics. When millions of individuals systematically avoid their own inner work, all that repressed garbage doesn't just disappear. It accumulates in the collective atmosphere.
It forms a giant shared shadow for the whole society.
Massive dark cloud. And then all it takes is a charismatic leader, a demagogue, to come along and point a finger and say, I know who's to blame for all your pain. It's them.
And because people are so disconnected from their own darkness, they buy it completely. They say, yes, that must be right. We are pure and good, and they are the monsters who must be eliminated.
It's mass projection on a terrifying scale. We fight physical wars to destroy the very things we hate and fear in ourselves. The intense ideological fanaticism we see in the world today, the polarization, the toxic us versus them mentality, it's all a symptom of shadow work that isn't being done on an individual level.
We have these isms, nationalism, communism, whatever ism, that offer a cheap, ready-made identity to people who have lost connection to their real inner one.
They offer certainty. And the ego loves certainty above all else. But the cost is your soul. You become possessed by an archetype. You stop thinking for yourself. You just start chanting the slogans.
Jung said something about technology that feels frighteningly relevant right now. He said that we have achieved a godlike level of technological power.
But we still have the psychology of prehistoric apes.
That is the precipice we are standing on, isn't it? We have the power to destroy the entire planet with the push of a button. We have algorithms that can hack our deepest psychological vulnerabilities, but psychologically, we are still fearful, tribal primates who project our shadows onto the tribe in the next valley over.
So individuation, the process of becoming a conscious, whole person, isn't just a nice self-help goal anymore. It's arguably a survival necessity for the entire species.
Jung certainly thought so. He believed that the fate of the world hangs on a very thin thread, and that thread is the psyche of the individual human being. If enough of us can face our own darkness, we might just be able to stop acting it out on the world stage. That puts a tremendous amount of responsibility on each of us, on the listener. It means your internal state actually truly matters.
It matters more than anything else.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. We've gone from the ego to the shadow, through the persona and the anima, all the way to the fate of the world. It's a lot to take in.
It is a lot, but it's also, hopefully, a beginning, a new map.
If there is one single takeaway from all this complexity, for me, it's that shift in perspective you mentioned earlier, the shift from fate to dialogue.
Yes.
The idea that I am not just a helpless victim of these powerful, invisible forces, that if I can just find the courage to turn the lights on in the basement, the monsters stop being monsters and they start being messengers.
Awareness changes the chemistry of the thing. The moment you can name a pattern, it begins to lose its compulsive grip on you. When you can finally admit, I am feeling this rage because I am secretly jealous, the rage softens. It transforms. It becomes something you can work with.
You stop being a puppet whose strings are being pulled from the dark.
And you start being a participant in your own life. You enter into a conscious relationship with the unknown part of yourself. And that makes life a genuine adventure rather than just a series of unexplained accidents.
So with all that said, we want to leave you with a challenge, a kind of homework assignment for the soul.
The next time you feel a disproportionate emotional reaction, and it will happen probably before the end of the day, the next time you feel that sudden flash of white-hot rage at a stranger in traffic, or that intense biting judgment of a coworker, or a sudden wave of anxiety that doesn't seem to make any logical sense.
Don't immediately look at the external trigger. Don't blame the traffic. Don't blame Steve from accounting.
For just 1 second, stop. Turn the camera inward and ask yourself this one specific question. Who inside of me is reacting to this?
Is it the frightened inner child? Is it the repressed tyrant? Is it the perfect persona trying to protect its fragile image?
Catch the invisible force in the act. Just see it, name it, maybe even say hello to it, and just notice if the grip loosens, even just a little bit.
Step out of the machine and into the force.
And start mapping your own hidden territory.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.